Okay, so imagine this. A super weapon. A weapon so powerful, so absolutely terrifying that its recipe was a state secret guarded more fiercely than any crown jewels. This thing could literally save an entire empire from being wiped off the map, but then its formula just vanished. Poof, gone from history. Today, we're diving into one of the greatest military mysteries ever, Greek fire.
Just look at this illustration from the 12th century. This is basically the stuff of nightmares for any sailor back then. You've got a Byzantine warship called a dromon just blasting this stream of liquid fire at an enemy ship. And we're not talking about just regular fire here. Oh no, this was something else entirely. Something that seemed to break all the rules of, nature.
So, the big question is, how did they pull it off? Seriously, the Byzantine Empire was always under attack, facing these huge armies, massive fleets. Yet its capital, Constantinople, stood strong for more than 1,000 years. How? Well, a huge part of that answer comes down to this one, single, terrifying secret weapon. A fire that you literally couldn't put out with water.
All right, let's get into it. What exactly was this stuff? Before we can crack the code, we have to understand the legend. And believe me, the stories from back then, they paint a picture of just pure, absolute terror.
And get this description? It's not from some Byzantine commander bragging about his secret weapon. Nope, this comes from an enemy, a crusader, who was actually on the receiving end of this stuff. He said it looked like a flying dragon. Can you imagine? It was so bright you could see the whole camp like it was daytime. This wasn't just a weapon, it was pure psychological warfare, liquid shock and awe.
Okay, so let's just lay out the basics. Greek fire was a liquid weapon, right? Developed way back around 672 AD, and they used it for over 600 years. It was shot out of these big tubes, but its most infamous trick, the thing that freaked everyone out, was that it just kept on burning, even on top of the water.
So, the historical records give us some really specific clues. First, it burned on water. Check. Second, it was a liquid, not a solid. Shot from a tube they called a siphon. Third, when it was fired, there was this massive thunder sound and tons of smoke. And the real kicker? You couldn't put it out with water. In fact, some people said water just made it burn hotter. You can see why their enemies thought it was straight up black magic, right?
Okay, so for hundreds of years now, historians and chemists have basically been playing detective, trying to reverse engineer this lost recipe. So let's put on our detective hats and look at the main theories and see why most of them just don't quite cut it. First up, we've got theory number 1, gunpowder. Now, this makes sense on the surface, right? You hear descriptions of thunder and smoke, a loud bang, a fiery projectile. It really does sound a lot like some kind of early cannon.
But here's where it falls apart. The timeline is all wrong. Saltpeter, the key ingredient you need for gunpowder, it just wasn't being used in warfare in that part of the world until way, way later. And more importantly, the physics don't match. Gunpowder goes boom, it explodes. Greek fire was always described as a jet, a stream of liquid fire that would stick to whatever it hit. So yeah, the gunpowder theory, it's a bust.
All right, so if it's not gunpowder, what about theory number 2? This one zeroes in on that whole burns on water thing. The idea here is that maybe the secret ingredient was quicklime. That stuff that has a crazy chemical reaction and gets super hot when you add water to it?
Yeah, that doesn't quite work either.
See, we have Byzantine military manuals that talk about soldiers pouring Greek fire onto the dry decks of enemy ships. No water involved in the ignition. Plus, they used it in grenades. And honestly, scientists have tried it. A quicklime reaction just isn't powerful enough to create the kind of giant, terrifying inferno everyone was describing. So, another dead end.
So, after we throw out all those red herrings, what are we left with? Well, today, most experts agree on the real culprit, petroleum. It turns out the Byzantines had easy access to natural crude oil, seeping out of the ground near the Black Sea. And that was almost certainly the secret base ingredient.
The easiest way to wrap your head around this is to think about a modern weapon, napalm. It's a pretty chilling comparison, but it fits. Both are based on petroleum, and both use some kind of thickener. The Byzantines probably used something like pine resin to make the fiery liquid super sticky, so it clings to a target and just keeps burning. So yeah, for all intents and purposes, Greek fire was basically ancient napalm.
But hold on, because here's the biggest twist of the whole story. Even if you somehow got your hands on the exact recipe, you still couldn't make Greek fire. Why? Because the chemical formula was only one tiny piece of the puzzle. The real secret? Well, it was a whole lot bigger than just a recipe.
And this is it. This is the key. The real secret wasn't the juice, it was the whole system. Greek fire wasn't just a chemical mixture, it was a complete, high-tech, for its time, weapon system. The formula was a secret, sure, but the machinery to deliver it was another secret entirely. And without both, the whole thing was basically useless.
Take a look at this reconstruction. This is the heart of the system, the ship-mounted siphon. And this thing was an incredible piece of engineering. You had a heater, a brazier, that would warm up the petroleum mix in a sealed bronze tank. Then a pump would build up pressure, and a trained operator would aim a nozzle and whoosh, a jet of ignited liquid. Just think about that for a second. A ship-mounted flamethrower in the 7th century. That's insane.
And they didn't just stick them on ships. No way. They made a portable version too. This little beauty is the Chersothathon, the hand siphon, and it was exactly what it sounds like, the world's first portable flamethrower. Soldiers would use these in sieges to clear enemy walls or torch siege engines. So this tech was brutally effective whether you were on land or at sea. So really, you have to think about it as 4 pillars holding the whole thing up. You had the formula, you had the specially designed ships, the dromans, you had the complex siphon machine itself, and you had the highly trained operators, the siphonarioi. But the real genius, the secret sauce to keeping it secret, was compartmentalization. The guy who mixed the chemicals had no idea how the pump worked. The guy who built the pump didn't know the formula. That way, even if an enemy captured a ship or a technician, they only ever got one piece of the puzzle. They could never put the whole thing together.
And they took the secrecy to a whole other level. We're talking a spiritual level. One emperor, Constantine VII, actually told his son that the formula was a divine secret, that it was revealed by an angel to the first Christian emperor, and that it was a gift from God. He even spread this story about an official who tried to sell the secret and was immediately struck down by a flame from heaven. I mean, talk about a warning. They were not messing around.
So, after dominating the seas for centuries, what happened? How does a secret that important, that well-guarded, just disappear from the face of the earth?
Well, this timeline really shows what a workhorse it was. For more than 500 years, this weapon was the game changer in so many critical battles. It famously saved Constantinople from not one, but 2 massive Arab sieges in the 600s and 700s. But then, you get to the 1200s, and the mentions just trail off. The empire itself was falling apart, and the best guess is that in all the chaos of the Fourth Crusade, the chain of knowledge was finally broken. Maybe they lost access to the oil wells, or maybe the few people who knew the whole secret were killed. Either way, it was gone.
The actual recipe might be lost to time, but its legend? Oh, its legend is alive and well. I mean, think about it. The terrifying wildfire in Game of Thrones, that is 100% Greek fire. Or the flamethrowers you can use in games like Assassin's Creed. The idea of this mysterious, unstoppable liquid flame is still so powerful it keeps popping up everywhere. That just shows you how much of an impact it made.
And that kind of leaves us with one final big question. The Byzantines guarded their secrets so perfectly that it literally died with their empire. So it really makes you wonder, right? What are the state secrets of our time? What classified tech in AI, in cyber warfare, you name it, will be the Greek fire for historians digging through our history 1,000 years from now? What mysteries are we making right now that will completely baffle the future?